Welcome to Season 4 of the M-W Tactical Podcast. Sit back and enjoy the conversations of Rockstar Burst and myself, Michael Woodland, as we discuss the sport of shooting, goals, training, community matters, and everyday life. You are listening to the M-W Tactical Podcast. All right, good people, we're back at it again, and thank you for joining us for another installation of the M-W Tactical Podcast. This week's show is brought to you in part by Hunter HD Gold. So in case you didn't know, Hunter HD Gold is an eye protective company that provides many different options outside of protecting your eyes while on the range. Now, I can say I use Hunter HD Gold for my everyday life functions when it comes to eyewear, because I have a pair that I drive in, I have a pair that I shoot in, and then I have a pair that I just wear for normal everyday activities outside of the house. So if you're interested in Hunter HD Gold, head on over to hunterhdgold.com. Check out what they have. I have yet to try their red line of lenses, but from what I read, some people say they like them. Some people say they don't. The one day I did try on the red line of lenses, it was overcast outside and I couldn't see past 20 feet past me. But I don't have enough experience with the red line to talk about it, but I can tell you the gold line is the real deal. So head on over to hunterhdgold.com or to the M-W Tactical YouTube channel and check out the review that I've done on the Hunter HD Golds and read up about these lenses on hunterhdgold.com. Once again, if you're watching us on YouTube, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, give us a thumbs up or down, whichever you prefer. It is greatly appreciative. As I've already stated before in previous shows, everybody comes to the YouTube channel just to look at Rockstar on the podcast. I'm cool with it, but I just like to talk and have conversations. But if everybody wants to look at Rockstar, by all means, come on over to YouTube and look at Rockstar. Now, if you listen to us on Spotify, remember Spotify also gives you that option, whereas you can watch the M-W Tactical Podcast on the service that Spotify is providing. Now, whatever streaming platform you want to listen to the podcast, please go ahead and hit that follow up, subscribe button, whichever one they offer, and be notified whenever we drop new content for the M-W Tactical Podcast. It is greatly appreciative. Now, without further ado, bringing forth the co-host of the M-W Tactical Podcast. This week, I didn't have a chance to troll Rockstar because I had to play catch up on some other stuff. But Rockstar didn't troll me this week either. So I was like, okay, we probably talked to each other probably one time this week. And I was in the middle of doing something and I just stopped what I was doing for like 2 seconds just to write her and say, hey, let's talk about this. And she was like, all right, cool. That was it. So we got some catching up to do when it comes to the troll department. So everybody is anticipating it. So we're just going to go ahead and bring forth the co-host of the M-W Tactical Podcast, the lovely, the insatiable, the one who is very knowledgeable, the one who keeps the show running on time, intact, however you want to look at it, the one, the only, Rockstar. What's going on there with you, Miss Rockstar?
Just making it through another week. I know we were both super busy this week, and
Yes.
it was, I don't know. I felt like last week was a crazy news week. There's still stories going on this week, but I feel like a lot of them are kind of continuations of what was going on
Correct.
in the previous week. So I'm like, oh yeah, we should probably like catch up and like rehash some of these points and see where we're at. But you know.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing we really do, or what we should catch up on, and I haven't done no research on this one, but the Supreme Court hearing with the NRA, and I don't think they wrapped that one up yet. So, but I want to go ahead and look that one up and retouch up on that one in a later show. And some other cases of incidents that we talked about, whereas people was doing certain things with firearms, just to retouch up on that as well. But outside of that, have you done any training since the beginning of January? Because this month has been like very cold, so going from January into February. So we've been having sporadic weather here in February. So we already had like 4 days already that was like summer. Everything else was winter. So I don't know how it is up there where you are.
Yeah, it's not super warm. It isn't terrible out right now. It's in like the 30s. But it
That's
snowed.
not, hold on. 30s is cool for you? That's a problem for me. I can't operate in that. I'm not walking out the house in 30-degree weather.
Man, it felt like a spring day up here. It was like 35 and everybody was excited.
Wow. Well, I know the time of this podcast, the high today is supposed to be up to like between 60 and 70.
Ooh, that's not bad.
That's lovely if you ask me. That means when we get finished recording, I'm gonna go walk downtown, just walk around and hey, how's it going, good people? Let's talk. Let's do this. you know, just to get up out of here.
It's 41 here today, or at least that's the high. So feeling spring like, I guess.
Uh, well, the warm weather it's coming back around, so summer will be here before you know it, and then you'll see everybody out and about. But speaking about coming back outside, have you noticed that they changed a lot of restrictions with the whole COVID mandate?
I have noticed that. I mean, I've been pretty much living my life normal for over a year. I think now I just stopped wearing a mask when I went out, and now there is technically a mask mandate in Milwaukee, but I went out for a birthday party last weekend and nobody had a mask on. I'm like, oh, I guess we're just not doing this anymore. Okay, I'm glad we're all on the same page.
Well, I know like when I doing a reverse lookup of everything, you had California saying they was going to lift the mask mandate, and I can't remember when they said it was going to start, but I guess LA County said they was going to keep it intact, and then other places were starting to do the same thing. Then before that, it was reports coming from overseas saying, "Hey, why are we overreacting on COVID when it was nothing more than the flu? You're going to survive with the less." And they're saying everything everybody was saying at the beginning,
Right.
right? Which goes to show that this was intact. In fact, deliberate attack on what other than your privacy,
Right.
because that right there, pandemic, just opened the doors for all these other laws to come into place for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's true.
And now you got the people who were saying, "Oh, I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it." Now they're sitting back like, "I tried to tell you. I tried to tell you." Now the people who got it, what will they say then? So what was the reason? Now is this going to bring forth all these court cases? Because you remember how they were saying at first, "Oh, well, you can't sue." Does that still stand now that they're reversing everything, or how's that going to work out?
Yeah, I'm curious to well, the the vaccine manufacturers are more or less immune to lawsuits, and that goes back to like the 80s. There was a whole case that was decided. I should look more into that. I haven't recently, but basically the liability is more or less non-existent, and instead of being able to go after the manufacturer, they have basically a fund for people who face vaccine injuries, and or if they die from a vaccine. That exists, but it's like you can't like sue Pfizer for that, or you can't sue like Johnson and Johnson. So that's like something that I think was passed when Reagan was around. I don't know that for sure, but I feel like that was under his presidency. And I personally think it's something that needs to be revisited. I actually think big pharma as a whole is something that we should really look at. I think there's a lot of, I mean, it's grown exponentially, right? Like we are the most medicated country in the world by a long shot. And I think Japan is the next one. And like we spend Oh, I just looked this up the other day. I think we spend like $340 billion a year on pharmaceuticals, and I think Japan spends like 90. So, I mean,
Wow.
it's we spend considerably more. And then, there's a lot of talk about like the people who want to socialize our healthcare or our medicine. But then when you look at these countries that do have socialized medicine, like they're not using prescriptions in the ways that we are. And I think there's just a lot of things that we have let these companies are huge. Like they make billions of dollars there, and they then pay for politicians who support their business model, and they don't face a lot of scrutiny. There was, Pfizer paid out one of the largest, I think it was the largest criminal fine in history back in 2009, and it was like $2.3 billion, which is a drop in the bucket to what they actually make. I mean, I think their revenue is going to be close to like $60 billion this year. So to say that they're paying like 2.3 billion, I mean, that's more money than I'll ever know in my whole life. But to them, it's sure it stings a little, but they're going to make that up pretty easily. So I would love to revisit kind of how we use medication in our country, because I think there's a lot of pill pushing, and there's a lot of that versus like finding the root of the problem. That's kind of always been my issue. And like, there's been throughout this pandemic, right? There's been no push on, oh, you should make sure you're exercising. You should make sure that you're taking care of your body. Are you getting enough vitamin D? Are you getting enough water? How are you taking care of yourself? Like none of that has been discussed from like day one, right? They're like, stay in your house and don't go anywhere. Well, that's not healthy. And then, of course, the only solution that they had was to get vaccinated. So to me, that's just not, I just don't think that pharmaceuticals should have so much power and control over an individual or a country for that matter.
Well, far as the pharmaceutical side of things go, I know for people who need medicine outside of the COVID shot, Mark Cuban, he invested in this company that reduces the price of pills. I read something slightly on it. I didn't read it all, but that's my thing. Whenever I start reading something, I get so distracted by something else, I don't finish it. I always do that. But if you're interested in looking that up, just look up Mark Cuban and his pharmaceutical business that he has. And supposedly, if you have to get some medication, and let's just say it costs $200, if you go through Mark Cuban, it will probably cost you like $50, something like that, from that little bit that I read. But it drops the price drastically, because what he pretty much said was, there is no way you should be paying this much for, something related to your health. It shouldn't cost you a second mortgage on your house to get surgery and all this other stuff. So people are fed up. That's pretty much what it comes down to. People are fed up.
Right. Yeah, I know. I saw that. I saw that headline, and I didn't really dig deeper. I was like, oh, that's cool. Someone should be doing this. And it's like, there's no competition. There's a lot of patents. I mean, if you look at like insulin, there's only four. Diabetes is one of the largest diseases in the world, and there are only four insulin manufacturers in the whole world. So it's like they've got a pretty big monopoly on that stuff.
Well, I think that a lot of it is people are scared of big pharma, because there's supposedly somebody who came up with a cure for cancer back in like the 80s or 90s, and they wasn't willing to sell that information to big pharma. And then big pharma came and destroyed his lab, lost all that material, and starting all over from scratch. I'm pretty sure somebody actually has the cure for it, but it's not in big pharma's interest for that to come out.
Right.
In a way of speaking.
You don't want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. They
Yes.
make a lot of money with those drugs, and it's
Yes.
way more beneficial if they can keep you sick but alive. I mean, if you're dead, you're not worth anything. But if they can keep you alive and they can keep you sick, you're a customer for life.
Well, I think that's what the COVID shot is, where it started. But that's another show. That's another show. But before we dive into this commercial break, I wanted to talk with you about the Joe Rogan incident and the Amir Locke incident that's taking place. Now, the Amir Locke incident, that is around your area. But for me, I'm like confused of what's going on because it just looks like a cover up in every direction instead of them just going to the root cause of it and remedying it, like the solution, right? So it's like, okay, what do you do? Right. And then, of course, I want to talk about what's going on with Joe Rogan. And he actually came out and said his spill, but I want to hear your take on it. And then I want to give my take on it also. All right. So if everybody will, like I said, if you're always driving in your vehicle, go ahead and put it on cruise control, turn the volume up. If it's hot, crack the window. If not, turn the heat up, put your sunglasses on. And here are a few words from our sponsors.
Are you in the market to purchase your first or next firearm, but find the atmosphere of a gun store intimidating, crowded, or uninviting? There's a way for you to purchase the gun you want while avoiding the crowds, the gruff salesmen, and the marked up prices that come with a brick and mortar gun store. The process is called a transfer, where the purchase is made at an online store and sent to a federally licensed middleman called an FFL, who processes the paperwork and background check for a firearm purchase. CAE Transfers is the FFL with the lowest transfer cost in the Midlands at only $20 or $15 with the presentation of a South Carolina concealed weapons permit and $10 for repeat customers. If you live in Columbia, South Carolina or its surrounding areas, choose CAE Transfers as your FFL during checkout and let me help you complete your online gun purchase. You can find and follow CAE Transfers online at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram using @CAE Transfers. Thank you for your business, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Mental health and guns. At Walk the Talk America, we are working with both the mental health community and the gun industry. Created by a gun industry veteran, Walk the Talk America seeks to raise awareness and create change through suicide prevention and firearm safety without legislation. We strive to eliminate the prejudice that firearms and mental health face. For more information and to support Walk the Talk America, please visit walkthetalkamerica.org.
Hey everyone, John from Outdoor Dynamics here. We're a remanufacturer of ammunition based in Kannapolis, North Carolina. We make everything from 9mm 115 grain to specialized 40 Smith & Wesson. So if you have anything from an open gun to just a standard Glock 19, feel free to reach out to us at outdoordynamics.net, or we're on Instagram and Facebook with outdoor.dynamics. And we're always here for you. Happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, good people. We're back at it again. And thank you for sitting through that commercial break. And I had a light that just went out in my little studio. So I got the backup light that's not doing any justice as I think it should be, but it's doing the best that it can right now. But please head on over to those sponsors and let them know that you heard about their product on the M-W Tactical Podcast. Now, before the commercial break, we actually stated that we were going to talk about the subject of Joe Rogan's incident and then the Amir Locke incident that's taking place. And we're going to go ahead and dive into the Joe Rogan incident first before we dive into the second one. Now, Joe Rogan has been in media for a while. All right. So whatever's going on with Joe Rogan, he is the hot topic, whereas he is catching flack from every direction. But I want to hear what Rockstar has to say about it before I give my interpretation of what's going on with Joe Rogan. So everything you heard, everything that you read, what is your take on what took place with Joe Rogan and what's going on right now?
So, okay, so to preface, I have listened to Joe Rogan on and off for a while. Actually, there's a really good episode. There's a name that has come up in the news in the last year or so, and his name is Brett Weinstein, and he has been on Joe Rogan's show twice. And he did an episode back in 2017, which is 100%, in my opinion, worth listening to. It's a really interesting episode. If you don't know who Brett Weinstein is, he was a former professor at Evergreen University, he was involved in an incident there that basically, in my opinion, was foreshadowing kind of the world that we're living in today. So I won't go into it. It's kind of a long story, but it's in the 900 episodes of Joe Rogan, I'm pretty sure. And it's just really interesting. And then Joe Rogan brings him back on in 2020. So the summer of 2020, Brett Weinstein is back on his show, and they're talking about COVID. They're talking about riots. They're talking about the state of the world in 2020. And it's a really good follow-up episode that I would also listen to. And really, like, I'm actually surprised that there wasn't all this flack back then, because when Brett Weinstein was on that particular episode, he was talking about COVID originating in a lab. And, that was like a big faux pas back in 2020. But after I kind of listened to that episode, that really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. So Brett is a microbiologist by trade. Like, that is, he's a PhD in microbiology, so he's not a virologist, but he's got a pretty good idea as to how tiny organisms and those types of things function. So it was really cool to kind of get his insight on that episode. So I'm like, if we were going to make a big deal about COVID, like, why didn't that episode get flagged 2 years ago? Which then led me down. There's another guy, his name is Jamie Metzel. He's not been on Rogan's podcast, but he was another one who's kind of been, he's like a very left-wing progressive, worked for like the Clinton campaign, but he was another guy who was calling out the whole lab theory back in 2020. So those are two guys. Like, Brett Weinstein is, a very progressive thinking individual who was kind of going against the party line, if you will. So I always take note when people are kind of on our particular side. I hate using sides for politics, but it really kind of is this left-right paradigm that we're living in. And anytime someone on a certain side is kind of going against the grain of what their party is saying, I always kind of take note of that, because I tend to think that those people are speaking truth. Because it takes a lot to lay down your kind of your identity and your party hat and be able to say, I'm going to look at this objectively and not let my feelings get in the way and not let my current ideology get in the way, and really kind of look for the truth in the situation. So those were two people right off the bat who I listened to a lot. There's another Rogan episode that I really like with Dr. Robert Schoch, who's in Egypt. Well, he's a geologist, but he's, kind of I guess an Egyptologist, if you will. But he's got some really cool theories on ancient Egypt and looks at things through the lens of geology. And those, there's a lot of other episodes that I really like, but those are just two that stick out. So I mean, I'm not a diehard Rogan fan, but he's someone who has been in and on my radar for many years. And, Fear Factor. Actually, fun fact, I won it wasn't on TV or anything. I was working at a restaurant, but we did a Fear Factor food eating contest. And I won the food eating contest.
So, first things first, with Joe Rogan and his podcast, it has always been a goal of mine to want to get on his podcast. So I would like to get on his podcast and just talk with him. I was in a room with Joe Rogan, but I never met Joe Rogan personally. And if I did, I don't remember, but that's always been one of my goals, is to, bucket list stuff, get on his podcast and speak with him. I listen to Joe Rogan, not religiously, every week when a new show comes out, but there are episodes I do dance around and pick who I want to listen to, conversation wise. Now, I do believe Joe Rogan is a master in his craft as far as being an interviewer and pulling information out. I think before the whole N-word complex that came out, it was a purposely driven effect to try to destroy Joe Rogan because of his openness to get people to think. Right? So it's more like, hey, why are you listening to these people Just listen to yourself, do what's right, but obey the laws, and you will be okay. And I think the powers that be are scared of people like that, because if you actually can conjure the people together, because we already know if everybody pulls together, the government has to listen to the people. But as long as there's division amongst the people, okay, the government don't have to listen to us because now it's size. The people have to come together first before we can actually say, all right, government, this is what needs to take place. But as long as everybody got their own individual ideas, it will never work. Now, do I think Joe Rogan is a racist? No. I think what was taking place with him using the N-word, and I'm just going to address it as the word after this. So what I believe took place is what he said was taken out of context. You know, he's came on social media, he's apologized for what he said and explained his reasoning. And it's just like anything else. When you watch a video, if you don't watch the whole thing, that 30-second clip can be taken out of context, what was really said. You know, now, before I go further, I do want to hear your side of how you feel and what you think is going on around the word with Joe Rogan, because it almost sounds like, well, it doesn't almost sound like it. I think this is the direction somebody wants it to go, is they want Joe Rogan canceled. And I think that's part of that bigger picture that I was talking about is, hey, if we can shut him down, okay, that's one less step we got to worry about. But what's your take on him using the word before I go any further with what I think about the word?
Oh, I don't care that he said it. I am like okay, so I am obviously a constitutionalist. I think it's so stupid. First of all, Black people need to stop giving their power away to white people over a word. Like, we need to get over it. We need to move on from it. It is a word. There are lots of offensive words in the English language. Like, it's time to move on. Like, we cannot keep being offended and upset and hurt and whatever by words. Like, and it's not even just like, that's just society as a whole. We are so wrapped up in being offended by everything. And I just think that it's I don't know, it's, to me, it's such like such a petty thing, right? Like, I don't even know how you unwind it from society. So it's like, just accept it for what it is and kind of move on from it. But that's like my take on it. I also feel like like these days everything is racist, right? Like everything, it's either racism or the patriarchy. Those are the two things that are ruining society. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like, why are we so dumb? Like, when did Americans get so warped by these things, these like ideas that, you know, everyone is racist and everything is all men are out to get you and all of these things? And I don't agree with any of that. And even the whole, you know, like, you look at like the 1619 Project, which if you actually read into it and read a lot of what the historians are saying, a lot of that stuff has actually been debunked. Like, it's not accurate history. And to just say that like America was, you know, founded on racism and all these things, like, I don't believe that. I don't think that that's a true statement. But now it's like, you know, it's really easy to manipulate people. It's really easy to like go back and like find all these old things. Even people who were like, oh, you know, Justin Trudeau was wearing blackface. I'm like, good for him. Like, that's fine. Like, I don't care. Like, we need to get past this idea that like everything is offensive and everything is racist, because that is the easiest way to manipulate somebody, is like make them get in their feelings, make them think that some group did something to wrong them, and then continue to exert your power over them. And it's, I don't know, I'm a First Amendment proponent by and large, and I always tell people, I'm like, why do you believe in the First Amendment? And, like I get various answers across the board. And my response to that is always because I believe offensive speech needs to be protected. And they look at me crazy. I'm like, why would you need to protect speech that isn't offensive? And then I never know what to say, because you wouldn't need to protect something that isn't offensive. And, we can't say all sorts of words because the PC police have kind of rained down us and said all of these various words are not appropriate. And like, I grew up I love George Carlin. He's one of my favorite comedians. I wish he was still alive today because I think he'd be having a field day with what's going on in America. But that's kind of always been my outlook on how I see the world. He was very much pro-offensive speech on all topics. And that's kind of where I stand. So I don't like to be manipulated by people who think that words are going to hurt my feelings. Like they're words. I think we need to learn how to build stronger humans versus better safe spaces. That's just sort of my take on the I don't know, the offense thing. As far as what they're doing with Rogan, I mean, the race thing is just like a total, it's like a gotcha thing. Like they don't like what he's saying about vaccines. There's 2 episodes of the episode with Dr. Robert Malone. And then there's, I forget the other doctor, but he is the one who's talking about mass information psychosis. And those are the 2 episodes that everybody is up in arms about. And I've listened to Robert Malone on several different podcasts, not just Rogan's. Like he's kind of been making the rounds. He's got one of the original patents on mRNA vaccines. And he seems to know his stuff. But anyway, so those are like the 2 episodes that they're really going after. And that's what they're mad about. And they're just trying to pull up videos about, Joe Rogan said this thing, or Joe Rogan said that thing, or he's dropping the N-bomb and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but that's not really what you guys are trying to accomplish. You're trying to get rid of him because you don't like that he's calling out your agenda. You don't like that he's asking questions. You don't like that he's bringing on experts that can poke holes in your theories. You don't like that he's got 11 million people who are listening to his podcast every week. And that's, more than 2 or 3 times the average nightly news anchor. So that's what they're mad about. And now they're like, oh, now we found this old footage of, him saying inappropriate things and he's a racist and he should be canceled. And I'm like, at this point, everybody should be canceled because y'all suck. Like I'm done dealing with people. Everyone is canceled in 2022. That's where I'm at.
All right. So now here's my take on all that now. Because I want to hear your take before I actually said anything about it. Now, as I already stated beforehand, I do not think Joe Rogan is a racist whatsoever. Now we got to understand his past, how he was raised, which I don't know. I do know he was a comedian, and then we know he was a TV host on a couple other shows, but that still doesn't excuse the fact that he used the word, But let's look at society today. All right. So we have kids who are not people of color calling themselves that word as a form of endearment. All right. Then when you turn around and you look at it, this was an incident that I was privy to one time in Georgia when one person said it to somebody else. They tried to pull me into it, and I was like, hey, this ain't got nothing to do with me, But what I did say was, I don't like the word. I don't use the word, So this first person was trying to justify it by trying to say, I said it with an A, not an ER. And I was like, do you know how stupid you sound right now, even bringing that up like that? Now, let's go back to when I was a kid. I was in 3rd grade, walking to the bus stop. And the bus stop that I went to, it was like the one bus stop for the whole neighborhood where I lived at. And it was some middle school kids at the same bus stop. And I don't remember what triggered this conversation or whatever the case may be, but one of the kids, who was a white guy, punched me in my stomach and called me the word. Now, my family shielded me from that when I was younger. You know what I'm saying? So the whole racism didn't really settle in my mind until after this incident took place. So of course, when I got home, I asked my grandmother and my aunts, because everybody was there in the kitchen, what is said the word, and everybody just kind of paused and said, who said that to you? And I told them what took place, and nobody got upset or mad or anything like that. And my grandmother looked at me and said, okay, that word is defined as a stupid and ignorant person. You're not stupid and you're not ignorant. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, so she went ahead and went down a course of it. Now, of course, later on, I went ahead and done some more research, of course, through Black History Month in school and everything. There's a country in Africa called Niger, right? So think about it. If somebody from America is coming off of their dialect or whatever is formed, they're coming to this country and they're trying to read it because the education value wasn't what it is now back then. And you're trying to decipher what this word means, and then you say it a different way, right? So, okay, get the people from Niger over here, right? Their education is a little bit lower, so they said it a different way, which kind of stuck, right? Now this is all me talking to somebody just 2 hours before I wrote you and said, let's talk about Joe Rogan, right? Who was a white person. And when I asked this person, all right, do you know the definition of cracker or where it comes from? And she was like, I have no idea. Okay. So I explained, think about the person cracking the whip over the slaves in the field or whenever they do something, right? And she said, oh, I had no idea, right? And I was like, so where do you think the word come from? So this is my take on that word is from country in Africa and the dialect and how we say it, you know. Do you say tomato or do you say tomato? It's one of those scenarios. But I went ahead and told this person the story about when I was a drill sergeant, because this is something I had to deal with when I was a drill sergeant. Because you got to remember, you're getting all these kids from all over the country, and they only know life from what they see out of their eyes. And you have a lot of people who are has a street mentality, and then a very small few that are very educated, right? So 2 guys in basic was having issues, black and a white guy. So black guy was calling everybody the N-word. You know, hey, what's up, my, you know, let me tell you what this did, you know. But as soon as the white guy said it to him, he got upset about it, wanted to fight. So, of course, you know, I had to interject into it. And this was my take on this. When I look at that word or when I hear that word, the definition, as it was explained to me when I was a kid, is a stupid and ignorant person. So you are okay with people who have the same skin color, who looks like you, to call you stupid and ignorant, but nobody else can. Right? He's looking at me and I kind of saw a light bulb kind of go off. Right? So why would you get mad if he calls you stupid and ignorant? Just say these words, stupid and ignorant. But yet this person calls you stupid and ignorant, is justified. Right? So let's make a change right now. And if everybody in this country really want to make a real change, it has to start within, right? So as you stated beforehand, we're giving the word too much power. And I understand what's taking place in history, but let's just erase it and let's take it off the board, right? So when you're looking at it from that perspective, why are we giving that word so much power? Why is it so ingrained into society? Why is it so ingrained that one group of people can say it and another group of people can't? And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack from this, but this is my personal belief. You know, if you really want to see change come forth, the word shouldn't have no meaning whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be a word that fires people up. Oh, you call me this, you call me that. You know, like you can call me that right now. Only thing that's telling me is, oh, okay, so this is how you really look at people who look at me, but that's your ignorance. I'm not worried about your ignorance because now I have an option, whereas I can either leave that environment or stay. But if I stay, we're going to talk. It's not going to become a physical confrontation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So when I look at it, that's how I look at it. So let's just take a definition and let's put it in perspective. Because if I call you professional, what does it mean when I call you professional? Somebody who's a subject matter expert, you're on top of this, like you're the one that knows the ins and out of this, and everything about it should be on point. I shouldn't have to worry about it when I go there. But when you call me that word, I'm supposed to get fired up, ready to fight, and I see nothing but red. Come on now. Once again, as you said, we're picking and choosing what we want to argue about. We got other bigger stuff on the table. All right. So, like I said, to me, when I hear it, cool. Some of the songs I listen to, it's in there. But I've always said Will Smith is my favorite rapper because he didn't cuss in his albums. I think he only cussed in maybe 2 albums, 3 albums, right? Method Man is the same way. And a lot of people don't understand this. Like if you listen to his albums up to a certain point, he stopped cussing because that was a challenge he gave himself, right? I'm not going to cuss in the albums, right? I'm not going to say certain words in the album, right? And which I believe it goes back into the whole entertainment realm. If the word isn't there, what will you get mad about next? What's the next thing we're going to get upset about, right? Because civil rights started when? And we're still dealing with issues from civil rights then, but why? The fault ain't on one side, it's on both sides of the puzzle. So let's start within ourselves. Like I said, to me, I was brought up, the word means stupid and ignorant person, right? I'm not going to call nobody else stupid and ignorant. And if I do call you stupid and ignorant, I'm going to tell you, hey, man, that was stupid, or you're being ignorant. That's how I'm going to say it. I'm not going to say another word because I want to get straight to the point of that discussion, you know? So the whole Joe Rogan piece and that word, if you listen to everything he was saying, yes, it was condensed down and they were just using what he was saying. Now, I think the way he went about it was wrong with him trying to prove his point. You know what I'm saying? So I would never say anything like, yeah, man, you know, I went to this event, blah, blah, blah. And when we got dropped off, it was like I was in Africa. I knew what he was trying to say. You know what I'm saying? But it could have been, you know, cleaned up a little something different. But you got to remember that time era, the condition he was in when he said it, how much did he have to drink, right? Which goes back to the way he was raised and his beliefs. You know what I'm saying? So was he choosing his words carefully? Yes and no, but it was just spun out of control. You know what I'm saying? So I accept this apology, but I think for real change to happen in America, that word doesn't need the power that it has. You know what I'm saying? So why even give it the power that it has right now? That's what I'm saying. So like when I'm looking at you, I'm like, okay, I'm seeing a blank look, but I don't know what's processing in your mind right now.
Well, I'm thinking, okay, so I was relating it back to Harry Potter, which I loved when I was a kid. I read it like 2 or 3 times. I actually reread it during COVID. I only got up to book 5 and then I had other stuff to do. But I literally sat and like was at my parents' house and reread like books 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And it's funny because when in the beginning, you're kind of figuring out like who Harry is and like who his parents are and why he's like a big deal, and everybody, so if you don't know the backstory of Harry Potter, he essentially was the child of two prominent wizards who were killed in an epic battle by Lord Voldemort. And when the book starts off, nobody will say the word Voldemort. And they actually refer to him as he who will not be named. And everyone kind of like tiptoes around it and they're like very like scared. Well, Harry grew up with the muggles who were, basically like regular people with no sort of wizarding capability. And he had no insight into what was going on, and his parents were not good to him, and he lived under a staircase and they kept him like extremely sheltered until he ended up going to Hogwarts. And he was basically the first one to call Voldemort what he was. And everything, when he first says it, everyone's like, oh, like, you said what? You referred to him as Voldemort? You said this forbidden word? But he like took away the power of he who shall not be named, right? And he was like open about like what it really was. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at right now. We're like tiptoeing around this thing and everyone's like, well, you can't say that, or you can't use it, or you blah 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 this. And I'm like, or like we could just stop being afraid of words and offended by words. And like, I don't know. In my mind, like an insult is an insult. I don't know why this one is weighted so much heavier. Like I think back to grade school and like there was, this girl that we picked on, and which is like really sad when you think of it. She was a really nice girl. She was just like she was just like a chubby girl. And we called her like chicken nugget, and we called her fat, and we were mean girls, and it wasn't, and but like I feel like I went to a really small grade school and everybody got picked on. Like I got picked on for being adopted. This one kid got picked on because like in second grade, he pooped his pants. Like everyone had took a turn getting picked on in some way, shape or form in my childhood. And I just don't think that I don't know why we weight insults differently, because an insult is an insult. It's meant to hurt you. It's meant to make you feel bad about yourself. So I don't, in my mind, calling someone stupid, calling someone fat, calling someone ignorant, calling someone, pick your favorite insult. Like, why is one of them so powerful? Why is one of them different? Like, why have we decided that this one word is the worst thing that you can call? I just don't believe that. I don't think that that's the worst thing that you can call somebody. And I don't know why we've given it all of this power when there's, a whole dictionary full of terrible words I can call somebody, right? So in my mind, that's kind of like where I come from. It's like, well, it's stupid that we're saying like, this is the one that you can't say. And it's because we've been programmed to think that. And it's because we've been programmed to say like, or to think that you can't say this because it's the worst of the worst insults. And I'm like, or it's not, or it's just another word. And we've given it way too much power and meaning. And like, no one wants to have that conversation about it.
That's very true. So even when you look at it, let's just happen to say we're at a party and you got the one guy who is before the party starts, everybody is measuring and sizing everybody up, right? Like most people do, right? Now a few drinks happen. Now this guy's becoming touchy-feely, saying inappropriate things. Now, whenever that guy comes around, you're going to see a group of people just kind of turn their back to the guy. They're not going to give him that attention, right? So that's pretty much how I look at it. Like, why are we giving attention to unnecessary stuff? But why are we still in the position that we're in as people, right? So is that part of the bigger plan, the confusion aspect of it? To not bring people together, but I've always said if we want real change to happen, we got to start within. And I'm not talking about us one-on-one. I'm talking about us as a culture, right? So we have to come up with, okay, look, yes, there's significant history of reflection with the word, right? Just like a friend of mine a few months ago, we had a conversation about the Confederate flag. And, he was more, saying what he said about the belief of it. And I was like, well, when I look at the flag, this is what I believe. And we had a whole conversation. He was like, I had no idea. I had no idea. Nobody ever took the time to actually talk to him about it, So it opened his eyes. And then like a week or so later, I seen him, and then he didn't have the plate on his truck anymore. And we didn't talk about it, but then like I did ask him, like, yo, man, I wasn't asking you to take your plate down. And he was like, no, I thought about it and I did it because I wanted to. That was the end of it. Right? Nothing else was said about it. And we're still friends to this day. But I just think the whole Joe Rogan aspect is getting overblown, and I think he's being attacked for the reason of just trying to tear down what he's built as far as the podcast side of things go. And as you stated at the beginning of this segment, I do believe the First Amendment needs to be enforced, right? Because the way I look at it is I went over to a different country to defend our rights. Not just what I believe, but everybody's right. So if you believe in something that I don't believe in, hey, that's your prerogative. That's what the law is. It gives you the right to think and react how you want to. Now, the perception of things and, guilty by association and public opinion and all that stuff, that's a different topic. But right now, I feel offended when people are trying to shut other people down, especially when I put my life on the line and other people before me done the same exact thing, for you to come in to try to say what you can and what you can't say. You see what I'm saying? That's where the problem lies with me, But on a personal note, like I said, I don't think Joe Rogan did or said anything wrong, because everything we do in life, it's a learning lesson, right? Now, is he apologizing because this is brought forth? Maybe, maybe not. But I think he is smart enough to say, if somebody was to bring this to him and it wasn't in the spotlight, I think his response would have still been the same as he did it on social media. I just think he's a genuine person. Honestly, I think he's a genuine person. But I don't think he done anything wrong in the aspect of how people are trying to tear him down right now. Because look at what they did to Kevin Hart when he was supposed to host the Emmys. Was that 3 years ago, 2 years ago? Something like that. And they went back 7 years when he was talking about I'm going to butcher this, LBGQT culture. Did I say that right?
LGBTQ.
Yeah, I always get them mixed up, but yeah, well, he was talking about that culture, but look at the time frame of when he was talking about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like the terminology that he had used then, that was accepted then, but they're trying to hold like, okay, well, today, you said this 7 years ago, but we're going to prosecute you today off of what you said 7 years ago. Right? And is that right? You know what I'm saying? And I used to say this saying all the time, like, oh man, you wrong as two boys, and it was just 2 years ago, somebody brought it to my attention, like, yo, you can't say that now, like that. And I was like, why? I'm not saying anything wrong, but I'm looking at it from my perspective in my eyes, and I'm not looking at it from who that can offend and how that can hurt. So now I don't even say that anymore. You know what I'm saying? But it's just a matter of how you was raised, how you look at things, and what lessons did you learn in life from it. Because I could have easily been like, I'm gonna still say what I want to say, and not care how it affects other people. But I had to change that, and which I did. It was just that person put that in perspective for me. Like, and just think about it. Like, okay, so you could be talking to a group of people, and what if somebody in that crowd is same sex? Look how you just offended them by saying that one statement. Right. And I was like, damn, you know what? You're right. What if it was somebody saying the same thing about firearms, and my passion is with firearms, or racing cars, or the way we dress? It can go either which way. So, but we just gotta look and dig deeper. But if everybody will, please send your comments to email info@m-wtactical.com and give us your insight of what you think about what's going on with Joe Rogan, or even in the comments if you're watching us on YouTube. And I'm curious to know what everybody is thinking. But I'm a firm believer in that we as a culture, we need to come up with a solution. And I don't think the solution is saying it with an A or ER. I think that's very ignorant to say something like that. But I think we just give the word too much power, and we need to take that power out of the word so we can move forward as a people, right? Both entertainers and regular people alike. All right. You got anything else you want to say about that Joe Rogan situation?
Well, I think it's important to, like, I always like this statement, like, you can't hold the past to present standards. And that's like really what this wave of leftism is trying to do, is to dig up all of these past offenses that weren't offensive. I actually am sad that America is so offended. I wish we could go back to being more offensive. That's actually, I think that's how you get over it, is you are just in, like, you know, blunt and in your face. And like, I hate that we self-police our words so much, because we're too, like, to me, there's a really good book that I have. It's called The Bait of Satan. And it is all about offense, and basically how offense is this tool of manipulation, and people being offended are weak and easily manipulated, and all of these things. And it kind of breaks down how you, you know, build yourself up to be a better person so that you're not offended by things. And I think that's the actual solution, is to figure out ways to not be offended and to have tougher skin. But that's not the direction that the world is moving at all. So I guess I'm fairly countercultural in that stance. But I think back to even like growing up as a kid, like the things that we would say, I'm like, you can't say that anymore. And like, that's too bad, because it's like, it wasn't out of a place of hate, right? It wasn't because we'd hated this specific group of people. But yeah, that's like a whole psychology lesson that I'm sure we could dig into.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. But let's jump into a quick commercial break and then come back and talk about Amir Locke. And then you can educate me on this, because you're dealing with it firsthand in your environment. But I'm kind of lost from everything I'm finding, because it's like everything I'm finding is somebody's trying to do a cover up, right? And I can't find the truth. So if everybody will, please go refresh your drinks and utilize the restroom, and come on back. And then here are a few words from our sponsors.
JM4 Tactical has developed a state-of-the-art polymer holster that will quickly become your go-to holster. With high-quality Herman oak leather securely sewn to the interior of the molded outer Bolteron shell, your draw becomes silent and no more scratches up and down your firearm. When seconds count, you can rest assured that you will have the upper hand when you need it most. Whether you carry open or concealed, the Relic holster is available in 4 different models, fitting over hundreds of different style guns. The new reliable, easy, light, individual carry holster by JM4 Tactical. Order your Relic today at jm4tactical.com.
Hey, this is Brian Conley at Hunters HD Gold. If you've never tried Hunters HD Gold, then I challenge you to find me at a match next year. Go to the website under scheduled events, find out where I'm going to be. Come meet me in person and demo a pair for yourself. Find out why shooters across the United States are changing to Hunter's HD Gold to get 43% more light to their eyes, better contrast, eyes that are not fatigued at the end of the day based on the colors that we use, and find out the real meaning of why they change so you don't have to. So check us out on our website, huntershdgold.com, and I look forward to seeing you at the range soon.
What's up, good people? Thank you for taking the time and listening to the M-W Tactical Podcast. Please go visit the M-W Tactical store at www.m-wtactical.com/store and help support our efforts by purchasing a shirt or two. If you haven't done so, go follow us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for M-W Tactical. All right, good people, we're back at it again, and thank you for sitting through that commercial break. And head on over to those sponsors and let them know that you heard about them through the M-W Tactical Podcast. Also, remember, share the podcast with your friends and loved ones about the M-W Tactical YouTube channel, because once again, once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we will be doing a giveaway. So we're getting there. We're just not there yet. So let's do what we can. And if anything, if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if you're subscribing, depending on what streaming network that you're using, give a star, 2 stars, 3 stars, or thumbs up, thumbs down, depending on what you use. Show some love, show some hate, whichever one you want. It doesn't matter. Just give it. All right. So now, before the commercial break, we did say that we just got finished talking about the Joe Rogan incident and how we feel about it and how we look at it. Now, there was another story that Rockstar had brought forth to me, and it's about this young man named Amir Locke. So you keep hearing us say there's a cover up and what's going on. So the backstory of how I perceive it off of what I've seen and what I read is that there was a no-knock warrant taking place. The cops ended up getting a key to the place. They came in. Apparently, Amir Locke, he was 23, 24 years old, fairly young person, sleeping on the couch of this house where this no-knock warrant was being initiated, and the cops shot him. Of course, when I heard the story initially, what I heard was when the cops came in, there was a firearm next to him and he was pointing it at the officers. But then later on, we found out that that wasn't true, or said to be not true. Now, of course, everything else I've seen after that is, you know, people calling out the police officers and everything I'm seeing on TikTok and social media, and a little bit that I heard on the news, but I'm not a big component of the news either, because I know like how they can twist things and, you know, agenda based and everything like that. But Rockstar has been on top of it, and we haven't talked about it, but I know like you got some interesting stuff that you found out in relation to this situation that's taking place.
Yeah. So so some of you guys know, I don't live in Minneapolis anymore, but I spent 7 years living there, and I lived there when all of the George Floyd stuff was happening. I lived like 5 blocks from the police station that burned down. I have a highlight on my Instagram feed of me walking through my neighborhood that shows us like all the damage that ensued kind of after that incident. So I still keep a pretty good pulse on what's going on in Minneapolis. I try to, obviously I still have a lot of friends who live up there. I spent a decent chunk of my life there, so I still just like to know what's going on and hope everyone's doing well. One of the big reasons that I did leave is because the crime is just like through the roof. And when I first moved up there, I was shocked. So Milwaukee is not a Milwaukee is, I love it because it's, it's where I'm from. It's like my people, but it's, it's a little rough around the edges. There's definitely room for improvement. But when I moved to Minnesota, I was shocked at how clean Minneapolis was, and like secondly, how safe it was, especially for a big city. It's significantly larger than Milwaukee. So I was like, oh my gosh, like this is pretty impressive. They've got very little crime. I can walk around at night and I never felt scared or unsafe. And it was just such a culture shock from being in Milwaukee, where like when I first moved into the neighborhood that I live in now, I moved there in like 2009, and like literally the first week that I lived there was a shooting in the bar in my alley. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy. I just signed a lease and this, but whatever. I mean, yeah, so there was just some like very big differences. But anyway, kind of after summer of 2020, it really started to go downhill fast, and there's just been a lot of not great incidences, both just with crime overall, and then obviously things with the police department. It's just like this never-ending cycle, and I'm like, what is even happening in this city? So this story is really sad and kind of interesting on several fronts. So Amir Locke was shot by police officers who entered this apartment unit, and there's like a couple things right off the bat that I think are really weird. So they obviously had the no-knock warrant. I'm not a fan of no-knock warrants in general. I just think there's a lot better ways that the police can be solving crime. Not only are they dangerous, they're actually dangerous for police, and I'm actually surprised more officers aren't injured during no-knock raids, but they're dangerous for the people who are involved. And, not only can, people like Amir Locke get shot and killed, but, there's been instances where even like with like Breonna Taylor, but there's been lots of instances where people will get hit by stray bullets, or just the kind of like the sheer shock and trauma of, living next to someone or above or below somebody whose door is getting kicked in by police. I just think that there are better ways to do this. But what was really interesting to me was that Amir Locke wasn't even the person that they were looking for. He is the cousin of the person that they're looking for, but he was not even the person that was on the arrest warrant. We don't know why he was staying there. That part, that's probably a piece of the puzzle we'll never know, because he's obviously not here to give his side of the story. But
this is what I think it is. Because what I understand is that he was pursuing a career in music as an entertainer. I know a lot of times when music is created, it's in the wee hours of the morning. You know what I'm saying? So was he coming back from partying and doing whatever to go to his cousin's house to possibly wake up early enough to get back to the studio? That's what I think. But as you stated, we don't know.
I know. Yeah. I know. It's just, and it's weird that like his cousin wasn't there. I mean, I guess like you can crash at somebody's house, but if I'm at someone's house, they're usually there with me. I don't know. It's like, it's just a weird thing. Like it's unfortunate because, he wasn't the person that they were looking for, but I am curious as to why was he there? Not that I guess it doesn't really matter, but I just think it is kind of like a, it's a weird thing. Right. The other part, like of him being related to the actual suspect, I think that there is this. I think as people, we don't put enough. We don't vet our circle good enough, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's really important that like who you're spending time with, what they're up to, what they're involved in, because bad apples like spoil a whole bunch, and you can be caught in something that isn't any of your doing because the person that you're connected to is involved in not good stuff. So I think it's really like I have a really large friend group, but like my core group is very like tight knit and close. And I vet those people pretty regularly, and I make sure that they're not doing, we're old now. Like, I'm not doing shady stuff. I don't have time. Like, but when I was younger, that was, I didn't hang out with, super shady people and get involved in situations where I would be put in harm's way or hang out with people who did that. So I think that is something that we don't do a good job of as a society. And it is something to, just to be mindful of. The actual guy that they're looking for is he's a kid. He's 17 years old. They found him, and they found him down in Monona, which is, I don't know, like an hour outside of the Twin Cities. But like, he's 17 years old. He's wanted for murder, for a murder of someone about a month ago, and he's got several other charges as well. So I mean, the police, he's had multiple run-ins with the law, and it's so sad because I'm like, this is like, he's not like a 25, 30-year-old dude. He's like a teenager who is in just boatloads of trouble, who is likely going to be tried as an adult. So it's like, that's like just really unfortunate too. Like, and like, where did this kid go wrong, right? Like, what happened that he's in this crazy situation? And then I think the final thing is, like, we talk a lot about like no-knock warrants, and I think there are maybe justified cases, but by and large, like, I don't like the idea of them. I don't think that the element of surprise is really this like really needed, especially, I mean, like, let's be real, it's 2022. You're pretty trackable and pretty traceable. Like, it's pretty easy to hunt people down. So the idea that, I get it. It looks cool in Hollywood movies. You kick down a door, you break into the place. It's all the things. But like, in real life, that's doesn't play out the same. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. I think it causes a lot of potential issues. I don't like giving the state that much power in general. Like, I'm very much, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that we should have this militarized police force, and that's kind of where we're at as a society. But yeah, so, and then, even like the things that they're using no-knock warrants for, it's like a lot of it is drug. This wasn't a case, but a lot of them are drug related. And I don't think that that's, whatever. We could do a whole show on drug laws. And then I guess the final point is, so Amir Locke, like, had a gun on him. Obviously, he actually had a permit to carry. He's an adult in Minnesota. I don't know if he was from Minnesota though. I think he's from Texas. Regardless, you can own a gun in your home. Like, you can have a gun in a private residence. Like, you don't need a permit for that. So if anyone broke into my house, I would have acted the same way. And like, you can see in the video, like, he has trigger discipline. Like, he doesn't have his finger on the trigger. Like, he is not in a place to shoot. And the cops don't even give him, a drop your weapon charge. They don't even say anything to that. It's like they break in and like they see the gun and they shoot him. Like, that's not, I don't think that that's how policing should work. So there's a lot of things that kind of all went wrong that just led to a really tragic outcome. And like, how do we take a 10,000 foot view at this situation and like find ways to make sure that these things don't keep happening? Yeah.
Now, I seen, I didn't know it was a video out as you stated, but now that I look it up, I see that there's a picture, and clearly he has his finger on the side of the firearm.
Yes.
And a blanket on the couch.
Yes.
Right. But let's take it into account even further. All right. Even if you're sleeping, regardless of who you are, somebody wakes you up, you're just not going to wake up and be like, oh, hey, how's it going? Right. Majority of the time people wake up and they're in a state of like, where am I at? And they're, calm down, hey. And then, like, think about it. When you wake somebody up, you kind of back up a little bit. Right. Unless it's like a little kid or something. Kids wake up, they just want to play. But as an adult, you already looked at certain things a different way, and the whole protective measure is different. So yeah, there's been plenty of times I heard a bump or like the wind threw something up against the house. And I'm rolling over and I'm already crouching down, firearm in hand. I'm assessing the situation. But now that I'm sitting there thinking about it, oh, maybe that was just, the wind threw something up against the house. So who's going to be outside right now anyway? But somebody kicking your door, more than likely, a lot of people who are trained will get their firearm, go, and then as soon as they see people who are not supposed to be in the house, they're going to start shooting. But now, even if they yell police, police, because once they start shooting, they're going to shoot back. And nobody's going to be, all right, everybody stop, everybody stop. All right, let's talk about it. It's not going to go down like that, because once the bullet is shot, that's not going to end until somebody ends up dying. We already know that. But I'm curious to know what was the justification for killing this guy. Because they were saying like he wasn't involved in it, but obviously they was looking for the cousin, as you stated. But why? Because when Breonna, was it Breonna Washington? Oh, was it?
Breonna Taylor?
Breonna Taylor. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place right now. But when Breonna Taylor's incident happened, didn't they do like across the country, oh, we're not going to do no-knock warrants? So why did they initiate this back up?
No, that was just in, where was she? Was she in Kentucky or Georgia? Somewhere down south. They just did it in her state. It wasn't like a nationwide.
Well, when that happened, I know they did the same thing here in South Carolina, because it brought so much attention. Like, I think it was North Carolina, South Carolina, and I heard other places doing the same thing, but I thought it was like a nationwide thing where it was like, okay, we're just not going to do it for whatever until we can realize what's going on. But I could be wrong. I really don't know. But either way you look at it, you would have took that Breonna Taylor situation and used that as a learning lesson.
Right.
Because like we already said, so much can go wrong, because half the time you look at it, when a no-knock warrant is taking place, is it the right address? You know what I'm saying? So that's where the problem comes in at. And now somebody gets killed is, oh, well, we're sorry, but okay, wrong house. Let's go down the street to the right house.
Right.
Like that's the attitude that is coming off from it. You know? So it's like no regard for life when it's a political measure, but as soon as a crime is done, now everybody wants to be, oh, get the picket, get this, we're going to jail, we got to take them to court. It's kind of off, But so now what's the state of mind for everybody? Because I know like one video I was watching, you had police like making a human fence, and people were sitting there doing a lot of screaming and, doing their protesting and everything. But what have you discovered? Have you talked to somebody that's in that area, and what's the mind state?
Well, what's interesting, I actually had two different people posting this morning about they acknowledged this particular case, but there was a student that was killed last night in North Minneapolis just from the ongoing violence problem that is plaguing the city. And two different people posted about that, and they were like, not to dismiss what's going on here, but they were both kind of saying, but we have like, this is like every day. This is like, and this one woman, she's a teacher. Oh my God, her post was so sad. And she basically was like, this is the second student this year that I have to bury. And I'm like, that's crazy. And they're kids. They're like, this was like a kid. I mean, not even a teenager, like a child. And both posts were really kind of talking about that. Like, yes, it's really sad that our police force is not, trained properly, and that we're still doing these things. But like, we're also completely neglecting this ongoing crime problem that we have. And we're dealing with kids killing kids, essentially. So I think there's just a lot of frustration and hurt on a lot of fronts. I think there's a lot of failed city leadership. There is. I mean, between the mayor and then the city council, it's just, I mean, the city is just, it's failing, and it's really sad. And they've cut police. There aren't new police coming. There's clearly a major crime problem between like the car thefts and there's like a big street racing problem right now. Like people have been killed in hit and runs, as well as high speed chases. So it's just kind of like, it's just really sad that this is like the state of affairs. And I think there's a lot to really fix, like between the police department, between the ongoing violence problems, between all of the, I don't know, just kind of the lawlessness that has overtaken the city. That's kind of the tone that I'm getting from up there. It's that it's not just the police, it's also this incessant, like, you can't catch a break, right? If it's not the police shooting somebody, it's someone on the street shooting somebody. And it's like, how do we end this?
Yeah, there was a TikTok video that I sent Rockstar, and this lady was going off about this incident, and apparently they asked her, she had some type of community influence, something along that line, and they asked her to be a part of it, but she stood up and she walked up and said, look, I don't have a gun on me, so I'm just going to speak. And obviously she feared for something for her to even say that, and then turned around and stated like, okay, y'all wanted me to come forth and talk to people and project this positivity, but yet you're not willing to call out the cover up. And she said cover up like 4 times in her speech, but then she also stated the whole accountability portion. So the person who she was talking to, was that the mayor? Because she never said his name.
Yeah, Jacob Frey.
Right. So and then she was like, that's why the people voted for you, because they're looking for change to start with you. But yet you're doing the same thing, which is, why are we doing this cover up? Let's do accountability right now. And it was pretty interesting. And I don't know if you watched it, but it was 2 parts that I sent to you.
I just watched the first part. I didn't watch the second one.
Yeah, so I was more like, oh wow, that's a big saying right there for her to come forth and say that. And so what's really going on? Because that's what spiked my interest, to be like, okay, what's really going on right now, and why is there a cover up?
Right.
So this is crazy. And as I stated beforehand, and I said this to my uncle when I was talking with him this morning, why are we dealing with the same matters from like the 1950 era? Right.
Yeah.
And we're almost 100 years to that. Just simple civil liberties that we are fighting so hard to get as a people. But I'm a firm believer in, if you do equality across the board, this country will be so profitable and so much resources and everything. But when you got people who are being greedy and don't understand that concept, and small-minded people, doing stuff that's not helping the agenda, how can we progress as we want to progress? Because once again, it starts within. You can't depend on somebody else to give it to you and then you run with it. You got to work for it. Yeah. So it's crazy. So prayers and best wishes go out to that family who has to deal with this tragedy. But at the same time, like I said, we as a people, we need to wake up. We got to have this conversation, but we also have to hold people accountable. You can't let people get off, because as soon as you start letting people get off, the problem is going to snowball to something bigger, right? So if there's a crime, if you did it, okay, you got to pay your time. All right, let's move forward after that.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so sad too. Like, if that the kid, like he, if someone would have turned him in, or if someone would have arrested him, like none of this would have happened. You know, like this kid was wanted for murder. He killed someone else and has been on the run since. They did finally find him, obviously, but it's like, man, because of that kid's negligence, he got his cousin wrapped up into a situation that cost him his life. And it's just like the chain of events that happens, um, you know, because you want to protect your own, or you don't think that your kid is guilty. It's like, but now look at what's happened because you're trying to protect someone who's guilty. That's really sad.
Well, let's take murder off the table, or let's even keep it on the table. And let's just happen to say he saw the murder, but he wasn't the one who did the murder. But yet somebody kept saying it was him who did the murder. And he's probably running out of fear. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to get prosecuted for something I didn't do. You know what I'm saying? So because of the fear complex and him not understanding he could talk to somebody to get it clarified, you know, or rectified. I mean, like, we don't know what his mind state was and the reason why, but obviously he done it, or as we think he's done it, or, you know, is he associated with somebody else who was there? Something like the whole story. I mean, I don't know the whole story, but I mean, let's look at it from a more, you know, open eye perspective, take other matters into account. And like, I had a friend one time, he was running from the law, but he didn't do what he was accused of, you know, so he was bouncing from house to house, you know, until he got up enough money to get a lawyer. And when he went into the lawyer, it came out in court that he wasn't that person they was looking for, you know. But if he would have like went on ahead and when like got arrested at the beginning of it, that situation probably wouldn't have turned out the same for him, because he didn't have the money, and public defender is not going to defend you like they should.
Right.
You know, it's more like throwing you to the wolves.
Yeah.
You know, so but like I said, the people who were helping him, everybody understood he was not there, right? He wasn't the person who did that crime. So like I said, he went on ahead, he got his money together, when he got a lawyer, and then he turned himself in, and then went through the court case, and it came out he was innocent.
Yeah.
So but we got to be understanding of the situation in the area. You know what I'm saying? So for instance, that took place in Georgia. I don't know what the mentality is up north in Milwaukee or Minnesota. You know what I'm saying? The rhetoric is probably the same, but the culture is probably a little bit more weaving, you know, because gangs wasn't as relevant then for my friend as they are now for, you know, society and the younger culture, or the networking of the gang culture, put it like that.
Still though, it's sad that, you know,
It is.
Kid out running the streets.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in
societal problem.
yeah. I'm a firm believer in bring back pure entertainment. Bring back the R&B, what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So you need 5 to 6 people in a group, all of them dancing in step, talking about love. Bring back rap that actually talked about a message, instead of everybody talking about how much money they have, what they spent their money on. Talk about something specific, you know, outside of negativity. Bring back the TV shows that actually had life lessons. You know, bring back commercials that talked about public awareness. You know, so all that's not no longer relevant like it was 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, which is a product of this is what you get now. So this is crazy. It's getting crazy out here. All right. So you have any more about that topic you want to talk about, or anything else you know about it that you probably failed to mention or overlooked?
Well, they did. So as of right now, the mayor did put a stop to no-knock warrants. So that's a start, and I'm sure it'll go to the legislature at some point. But I would like to see, I don't know. I guess like I would like to see something more than just the mayor put like a moratorium on it. I think it needs to be a bigger discussion um, as to why we're doing. I'm just not a fan of that practice. I think there are maybe some instances where it does make sense, but I don't think, like this guy is the guy they were looking for is one dude. He's not part of this, like, from what I can tell, he's not in this like massive operation. He's not like some kingpin. He's not like heading up a cartel. You know what I mean? He's like a guy that they're trying to hunt down for murder and a couple other charges. But I just like to have like an entire SWAT team come in for one person just seems kind of like an abuse of power. I don't know. I just don't think that many 17-year-olds are that dangerous. I mean, obviously dangerous, yes, but like it's not like he's running this like crazy world operation that needs this giant intervention. That's kind of my take on it.
Well, it's the message of, right? So when they go in 30 deep for one person, it's the message that, oh, regardless of where you hide, we're coming through. We're going to get you. So is it necessary? Yeah, no, they could have done the same thing with 3 people.
Yeah.
But it's a message. They're facilitating a message, right? Which has just been a TV commercial, and then they could have went back and done 3 people just going to get them. But yeah, so let's go ahead and wrap up the show, and then next week we can do a summary of whatever happens over the week coming, and then bring forth any new evidence that we brought up or information that we discovered, or so of course, as already stated beforehand, remember that we're going to be doing a giveaway for the M-W Tactical channel, and on the M-W Tactical podcast, once we hit 1,000 subscribers. We are inching up to that number, so we are almost there, and I'm so looking forward to see who will get a pair of the Hunter HD Goals that we have in line to be given away. And that's just one of the sponsors of the show who gave us products to be given away. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, thumbs up, and do us that favor and show us some love. You can even hit the thumbs down. All right. So either way you look at it, it's going to show us that you're thinking about us. And listen to us on your favorite streaming platform. So if you're taking a trip somewhere, if you're someone who doesn't like to listen to conventional radio, and you like listening to podcasts, so go ahead and subscribe to us on your favorite streaming platform. And we're on a lot of them, so I don't even know all of them that we are part of. So I always tell people Spotify, Google, Apple, and Anchor. But there are so much more, so many more podcasts that we're a part of. So if you will, just do a search for M-W Tactical by looking up at M_W Tactical. On Facebook and YouTube, just go ahead and put in M-W Tactical and you'll find it. Now, if you want to look up Rockstar, you can do so by looking up.
Look up Rockstar Burst, BERST, on Instagram. Or feel free to look or just leave me a comment on the YouTube thread, and I'll respond to that.
Yeah, so we gotta get the update on that rifle that you was decorating and putting the furniture on. So yeah, we need to do a show on that one to see where you at with it. I think that would be pretty interesting. So, but let's go ahead and close out, and we'll be back again on Tuesday. So until then, as we always say, everybody please keep shooting, keep practicing, and have fun. Y'all take care now.